Hi, Allie. How you doing?
Good.
How's it going in school now? How's reading class?
Pretty good. I'm using some of the things you taught me, and they're helping a lot.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll go over some more tricks today, and things will get a little bit easier for you. All right, what I did is I grabbed a passage. Let me just copy and paste it and put it in here. We're going to read this passage together. Did you ever hear about the Trojan horse?
No.
All right, well, you will today. All right, why don't you read that out loud, and we'll stop here and there and discuss some of the things. But go ahead and read that. I know there might be some words that you may not know, so just do your best to pronounce them. Go ahead.
Paris, who was a prince of Troy, received a wish from goddess. His wish was to wed the most beautiful woman in the world. The only problem was Helen, who was the most beautiful woman, was already married to King
Menelaus. That loss kind of looks like what? If you cover that up, Santa
Claus.
Kind of looks like the same ending. So Menelaus. Okay.
When Paris stole Helen, he started a war that lasted 10 years. It was called the Trojan War.
Oh, hold on. Let's go back to that word. What are the first two letters?
Okay. Trojan.
There you go. Trojan War.
The two sides fought and fought until the Greeks' king Menelaus group created a giant horse and wheeled it to the walls of Troy as a peace offering.
So what did you think about that passage? Was it easy? Was it perfect? Was it a little bit difficult, challenging?
It was a little difficult. There were words here and there that I didn't know, but for the most part it was good.
Can you summarize that in your own words? Do you kind of know what happened there?
There was a prince, and not a prince, but a person, and he wanted one of the most beautiful people in the land.
Sometimes when you read, you kind of get some of the main ideas, but then you really want to reread everything and stop and think about each sentence or every couple sentences. So let's go through this again, and we'll go line by line and kind of see what the main points of everything is, and then I'll ask you to redo your summary after we reread this.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of people in here, weren't there?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of big fancy names. So one of the things that you can do when you're reading stuff, especially some fictitious stuff, you can go and kind of highlight or identify who all the characters are. So let's get some red, and let's click on no fill because we want open circles here. And let's highlight all the people. So who's the first person that you would highlight? And why don't you go ahead and do that?
Paris.
Okay. It says that Paris, who was the Prince of Troy, he received a wish from a goddess. So maybe we can circle that. Why don't you go ahead and circle the goddess?
Okay.
Because that's another character. And his wish was to wed the most beautiful woman in the world. The only problem was that Helen, who was the most beautiful woman, was already married. So which name are you going to circle now?
King Menelaus.
Okay. Let's back up a tiny bit. Did you skip one other character?
Helen.
Yeah. So we have all the major players circled. We have Paris. We know that he got a wish from the goddess. We know that he wanted to marry Helen, but she was already married to the king. Now let's read this sentence right here. It says, how does that sentence start?
When Paris stole Helen.
So is Paris kind of a good guy or bad guy here?
Bad.
Okay, so Helen was already married to King, and then Paris came along and stole her. So who do you think was upset by that?
The king.
Yeah.
By far.
So it looks like they started a war that lasted 10 years. I remember you said that in your summary earlier. And there was a name for that war. What was that called?
The Trojan War.
Why do you think they call it Trojan?
I'm not sure, actually.
Did they give you any information where it was taking place?
In Troy.
Does that kind of sound familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where they got the name Trojan from, because it took place in Troy. Alright, so what group of people was King Menelaus with?
The Greeks.
And how'd you know that?
Because it says, the two sides fought and fought until the Greeks, King Menelaus' group,
Oh, okay, good.
created.
Very good. So you sometimes, in order to get answers, you have to read a little bit ahead of time or ahead in the passage, and then that'll clarify things for you. Good job there. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these questions. There's 2 multiple choice and an open-ended question. Okay, why don't you read the question?
Paris had to use tricky or magic to have Helen because...
All right, try that one more time.
Paris had to use
Trickery.
or magic to have Helen because...
Okay. And then read your options. Option A says...
She lived out of town.
So did he have to use trickery and magic to get her because she lived out of town?
No.
All right, try to read the next one.
Paris was already married.
Now, who was Paris again?
The prince.
Okay, was he already married?
No.
So is that true?
No.
Okay, so far we can cross off A. Go ahead, and we can cross off B. Why don't you do that? There you go. All right, let's read C and D.
Helen was married.
Was Helen married?
Yes.
Who was she married to?
Prince Menelaus.
Okay, close.
King Menelaus.
There you go, King Menelaus. All right, and let's look at the last option, because C is true, but we don't know if that's the answer to the problem. It says he had to use trickery because she was married. Sounds good, but let's move on and read the last option. You always want to read all your options, even if you think one's correct. So read D.
Helen despised Paris.
Despise looks kind of a big word there. What does that mean?
It means didn't really like, didn't really like.
Each other?
Yeah.
Okay. Did the author ever mention Helen and Paris and whether or not they liked each other or didn't like each other?
No.
So if the author really didn't get into that, and you do have a better option, then you probably want to go with C and eliminate D.
Yeah.
Okay. You can assume that Helen probably didn't like Paris since he was kidnapping her, but it looks to me like there's definitely a better option here, that Helen was married. Okay. All right, so the correct answer for that one would be
C.
You got it. Put a little triangle around C. Okay, I'm going to send you a link at the bottom. Why don't you go click on that link right there, and then we'll go visit that website together. There's a lot of passages, quick short passages that we can work on. We're going to read through and work on inferences. So I'll meet you over there on that website. Let me know when you get there. So it says, what can you infer from this passage? And the passage is over there on the left. So why don't you read that passage?
The sun was low in the sky. Kay's body ached. Blisters had formed on her hands. She laid the rake down on the big pile of leaves and headed for home.
Okay, so why don't you read your 3 options?
Kay had worked a long time. Kay had been feeling sick, or Kay dislikes raking leaves.
So what do you think?
Well, probably not. Kay has been feeling sick, because I didn't mention anything about that. I'm going to say Kay has worked a long time, because you don't get blisters from disliking raking leaves.
Very good. And what's the first sentence? What's that talking about?
That it's getting dark out.
Okay, sun was low in the sky. Rephrase it. Give me another sentence if you were the author and didn't want to use that sentence but still get that same point across.
It was sunset and Kay's body started to ache.
Okay, there we go. So let's mark that one and we'll move on. We'll do one more question here. Alright, read the passage on the left.
As usual, Jim left for school 10 minutes later than he should have. His shoelaces were untied and his backpack was unzipped. He had to travel only 1 block when he had heard his mother shout his name. He looked back and saw her waving his brown bag for lunch. I'm going to say Jim is disorganized because he's walking to school and there are no clues in the passage that say he's in 4th grade.
Okay, so that narrows down, or I guess cancels out your last 2 options. Yeah. And give me a couple of reasons why he's disorganized. What did the author tell you to make you think that?
He says that he left for the bus 10 minutes later, his shoes are untied, his backpack was unzipped, he forgot his lunch, so that sounds really disorganized.
Very disorganized. You're not like that though, right?
No.
Okay.